Good day everyone, my name is Keshatu H. Galinho from the Ed2B, and our assigned topic is all about the execution of the national hero.
So Rizal knew that his fate was sealed, he was destined to die. So bago pa yan, alam na Rizal na mamatay siya. And he was formally notified of his death sentence 24 hours before the exact time of execution. So meaning, may natitirang 24 hours na lang sa kanya or 1 day before the exact time of execution. So during his remaining hours, he received a number of visitors from his prison cell in Fort Santiago. So meaning, nakakulong kasi si Rizal sa Fort Santiago. So during his remaining hours or natitirang oras niya ay may nagbibisita sa kanya or may nagvi-visit sa kanya and they were Jesuit fathers. Meaning ng Jesuit fathers, ito yung Society of Jesus, or sa mga Katoliko, ito yung mga fathers. So they were fathers Miguel Sadevera Mata, Antonio Rosel, Luis Visa, Jose Villaclara, Federico Faura, and Vicente Balaguer. Nandun din sila Don Santiago Mataik, and Lieutenant Tavil de Adrada also came to see him. So in the afternoon of the same day, the immediate members of his family, his aged mother na si Doña Teodora, sisters, and Josephine Bracken came. Ito kasi si Josephine Bracken came, ito yung minamahal niya si Rizal. And to his sister Trinidad, he gave his alcohol cooking lamp kasi may binigay kasi si Trinidad na binigay niya ng alcohol cooking lamp na nakapaloob na nakasulat sa his Ultimo Adios. Itong Ultimo Adios, ito yung last farewell letter ni Jose Rizal. So next, before they left the prison cell, Rizal kissed his mother's hand and told her with a soft and emotional voice, "I know I had caused you pain in moments of unhappiness. Please forgive me." Then he gave Josephine a tender kiss as if to say goodbye, my dear and unhappy wife. They left the prison cell with tears in their eyes. So bago siya umalis siya na napaluha. So the retraction, Rizal life as a national hero of the Philippines was the most documented both in primary and secondary sources. However, the issue in retraction was still a case where the abundance of material seemed to actually lead to confusion. A number of biographers and historians had follow a paper trail down to the primary sources to establish the validity of his piece of information. As a national hero of the Philippines, Rizal's life has become public. He has little or no private life left. So alam naman talaga natin na parang yung life ni Rizal is parang nakapublic na and wala nang natitirang private or parang hindi na wala nang natirang private sa buhay niya. So since at the early childhood, the Catholic doctrine and teachings were deeply implemented in his mind, he continued to have faith in God. So meaning kahit bata pa yan kasi sila Rizal, ang kanilang pamilya na is parang sumusunod na sa mga Catholic doctrine and teachings were deeply implemented in his mind na hanggang ngayon is may paniniwala pa rin siya sa Panginoon. So at around 10 p.m., a draft of the retraction from Archbishop Bernardo Nozalda was shown to him. So kasi ito si Archbishop Bernardo Nozalida was shown to him. May pinakita na draft of letter na hindi nagustuhan ni Jose Rizal kasi parang mahaba yung mga wordings niya. Another draft was shown again by Father Balaguer, which was prepared by Father PUP. He agonized on the question of whether to heed the advice of the priest attending to his spiritual needs to reconcile with the Catholic Church, which he finally abandoned in favor of Freemasonry. Kasi ito yung, ang Masonry, di ba, alam naman natin na ito yung a group of people or ito yung organization. So Rizal finally relented and wrote a letter of retraction which was published in the Spanish newspaper during that time. Records shown that Rizal wrote the retraction and finally signed, in which he renounced Masonry. A portion of it read, "I declare that I am Catholic in this religion in which I was born and educated. I wish to live and die." His retraction in his renunciation of Mazzarino in returning to the fold of Catholicism. In the morning of December 30, 1896, Rizal woke up early. So ito yung the day of execution, December 30, 1896. Before the Mass began, Rizal confessed Father Balaguer and received Holy Communion during the Mass. So bago siya mamatay, nag-request siya kay Father Balaguer and na communion during the Mass. And he also read the Acts of Faith, Hope, and Charity from the Spanish prayer book entitled Acceptation de la Muerte, Acceptance of Death, and Imitation de Cristo, The Imitation of Christ by Thomas Kempis. So at around 5 a.m. had his last breakfast. Ito na yung last pang umagahan niya. A little later, Josephine and his sister Trinidad came. So dumating si Josephine and ang kanyang sister na si Trinidad. So Rizal requested Father Balaguer to solemnize canonical marriage with Josephine an hour before his death. So ganyan niya kamahal si Josephine Bracken kasi nag-request pa talaga siya bago siya mamatay na ikasal siya solemnly before an hour of his death. So Rizal last letter. Rizal wrote farewell letters to his father, to his mother, to his brother Pusiano, and to his intimate friend Blumentritt. So ang kanyang letter sa kanyang papa is ito. His last letter to his father. Dear Papa, forgive me for all the pains and sorrows that I had caused you to repay you for sacrifices for my education. And sa kanyang kaibigan naman, ito yung letter niya. I shall be dead by the time you receive this letter. Tomorrow, I shall be shot by a firing squad at 7 o'clock in the morning at Bagumbayan field. I am innocent of the charges against me and I die with clear conscience. Kasi namatay si Dr. Jose Rizal noong December 30, 1896 sa Bagumbayan sa Manila na ngayon ay Luneta Park na ang tinatawag. Pinatay si Rizal gamit ang baril ng mga Kastila. Patalikod itong binaril, ngunit bigla siyang humarap sapagkat ang ibig sabihin ng patalikod na pagbaril ay pagtataksil sa bayan. Pinatay siya ng mga Kastila dahil sa kanyang mga sinulat na nobela na naglalaman ng mga pang-aalipin at pang-aabuso ng mga Kastila sa mga Pilipino.
Good day everyone, I am Sania Dinamruddin and my assigned topic is about the date March began and the execution of Dr. Jose Rizal.
The date March at Bagumbayan. Bagumbayan is the place where Rizal execution happened. Bagumbayan is now popular as Luneta. At about 6:30 a.m. on December 30, 1896 at Fort Santiago, the trumpet sounded a signal to begin the death march to Bagumbayan. Rizal worked calmly with his defense counsel Lieutenant Luis Trabel Andrade and took prize. Rizal wore a black suit and vest with black hat. So at about 6:30 a.m., Rizal was dressed up elegantly with his black suit, black derby hat, black shoes, white shirt, and black tie. Rizal's arms were tied behind him and in his right hand he's holding a rosary. Habang sila'y nagmamarcha, Rizal and his defender were guarded by the platoon's Spanish guards behind them. There are a lot of spectators lining the street from Fort Santiago to Bagumbayan. So the Spanish soldiers form a square na kung saan doon sa gitna tatayo si Rizal at doon din nila babarilin. Then a huge crowd of Filipinos and foreigners moved closer in that cordon dahil sa huling sandali ng ating national hero ay gusto nila itong masulyapan. The execution. Dr. Jose Rizal bid farewell to his defender and the took prize. Even though his arms were tied, ay mahigpit na itong pinagsalikop sa paghiwalay just to make a farewell to his defender. Rizal requested to be shot facing the firing squad, but his request was denied. Gusto ni Rizal na pagbabarilin siya ay nakaharap siya sa kanila. He rejected to be blindfolded and insisted on facing his execution. But then, his request was denied. Hindi man lang pinagbigyan ng Spanish officer si Rizal because he had a specific order from the higher authority which is to shot Rizal at the back. A military physician, Dr. Philip Castillo, examined Rizal's vital signs and pulse rate. Dr. Philip Castillo asked permission to Rizal to check his vital sign. Then that military physician was amazed. Namangha siya sa kanyang nalaman na yung pulso ni Rizal was perfectly normal. Ni walang kaba o takot ang naramdaman ni Rizal. Pinapakita niya na he was not afraid to die because he is not guilty and to show that he is not a traitor. As the people crowded the scene, the squad commander shouted of Pego, which means fire, and then the guns of the firing squad rang out successively. Rizal fell face up and was able to see the dawn breaking before he uttered in his final breath, "Consummatum est," which means it is finished. Dr. Jose Rizal died exactly at 7:03 in the morning. That day na namatay si Rizal was the great day for Spain at sinisigaw rin nila ang Viva España, which means long live Spain, death to the traitors. But today, a very famous landmark right in the heart of Manila stands a statue of a man silhouetted against the blue sky, perhaps the greatest educated Filipino, a man with purpose and a man of conscience, martyr and our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal. The Rizal's Ultimo Adios. On December 29, 1896, Rizal wrote the famous, longest, and untitled poem. During his 24 hours, he is secretly finishing the farewell poem, which is characterized with a sense of lofty ideals, love of country, and his countrymen. The farewell poem he wrote was full of emotions with sadness because he is leaving his loved ones and his beloved countrymen. The original in Spanish of this Ultimo Adios was translated in different languages, in English, French, German, Italian, Japanese, and Malayan. The English translation of this Ultimo Adios will be discussed by the next reporter.
Jane A. Kaunutan. My assigned report is My Last Farewell, also known as Mi Ultimo Adios of Rizal. So, tatalakayin natin ang huling tula ni Rizal at kung anong ang ibig sabihin nito. So, it was considered one of the evidence that Rizal did not retracted his beliefs. The poem, together with Rizal's execution, ignited the Philippine Revolution. In 1902, the poem was recited before the American House of Representatives. The poem revealed the novelty of the author and forever changed how Americans looked at the Filipinos during the American occupation, resulting to the passing of the Philippine Bill of 1902. At the eve before his execution, Rizal wrote his final poem on a single paper revealing his strong nationalism and unwavering love for his country. It was later received by his family hidden inside a small alcohol stove. At isa na yun, si Trinidad ang nakakuha, ang kanyang kapatid. So, ano ba yung laman ng alcohol stove na binigay niya kay Trinidad? It's a piece of paper that contains poem o tula which is known Mi Ultimo Adios. Yun yung kahuli-hulian literary word na isinulat ni Rizal bago siyang patayin. Actually, according to historian, wala naman daw title itong last literacy word ni Rizal. Saka lang daw ito nabigyan ng title after na nabasa ng mga tao, maybe his family or close friends. Last Hours to Martyrdom, biography Wenceslao Rizana Rafael Palma and Leon Ma Guerrero recounted Rizal's guilt of genius, methodological lifestyle, and productive hours, all of which would negate the logic Rizal had waited until December 29. Upon hearing the court decision, Rizal already knew that there's no way that his destiny would be changed. Rizal knew it was his end and accepted his fate. Captain Rafael Domingos at 6 o'clock in the morning of December 29, 1896, read before him the official notice of his execution scheduled the next day. Rizal was immediately transferred to the prison chapel where he spent his last hour. Lieutenant Andrew, not being a lawyer, must have learned that the maximum penalty of death could not be evaded because the government has arranged even the most inclusive and flimsy evidence against the accused was pardoned or commutation on the mind of his defense counsel, Andrade. Lieutenant Luis Tabel de Andrade did all intelligence and division could do to get a fair trial for the stranger dependent on his chivalry. It took real courage to make such a defense, as he did in unpopular cause, but the result was never in doubt. So, how could pardon or commutation be extended by a government so totally bent on destroying the man who inspired the rebellion? Doña Teodora even went to Malacañang with a petition for a pardon, but she was not admitted to the palace. She is too brave to send this to Spanish rules. She might be punished as well because of her presuming words, but then instead of thinking for herself, Teodora Alonso Hart desired to save his son by convincing Spanish government to withdraw their decision towards her son's case. At December 28, 1896, Doña Teodora Alonso, the hero's mother, went to Malacañang to plead with Governor Camelo de Tolabeja, but she was refused admission. When Rizal learned on Christmas Day that an ordinary court martial of the post was constituted to try him for the complex and capital crime of rebellion, through illegal association, he must have known that the countdown to martyrdom would be quick and had started clicking even before the trial. Trial of Rizal began at the Cuartel de España on the same day. The court martial secretly and unanimously voted for a guilt verdict with the penalty of death before a firing squad. Most historians and biographers feel justified in their comments and observation that Rizal's final fate and confrontation with the Manila government had been sealed by publication of the Noli in March 1887 in the Fele in September 1891. These two novels had transformed Rizal from a social to political crusader for his people. Truly, his homeland has become the only logical venue of his supreme mission of lifetime love of country. Rizal remains an article from Historical References by Luis R. Ciazon, a member of Historical Commission, shows that a last request of Rizal shortly before his execution was denied by the Spanish authorities. Article said Rizal had one final wish before he faced his execution to allow his mother Teodora Alonso to take possession of his corpse. Rizal's plea was turned down by the Spaniards. So, hindi pinayagan ang kahilingan ni Rizal na muling makita ang kanyang ina na si Teodora. Shortly after then, Manila Mayor Manuel Luengo allowed Rizal mother to take her son body after the execution. Rizal family, pumunta sila sa Bagong Bayan para makuha ang katawan ni Rizal, pero wala silang nakita. Rizal's sister Narcisa searched the whole day, bringing a small marble slab which the family wanted to place on Rizal's grave. She went from one cemetery to another in the city and beyond city limits to search for her brother, pero nabigo siya. At the end of the day, she almost gave up, but she was passing by Paco Cemetery. Narcisa saw several Guardia Civils, something unusual in those days. Narcisa, after a long search, discovered where her brother's body was secretly buried at the old unused Paco Cemetery. She asked the guards to place a marble plaque designed by Dorotea Ongjongko containing Rizal initial in reverse RPG, and the inscription RPG was actually Jose Protasio Rizal. When the American had taken over Manila on August 17, 1898, the family led by Narcisa, her daughter Angelica, and several sculpture friends had Rizal body examined almost 2 years after his death. August 17, 1898, 4 days after the mock Battle of Manila, when the Americans took over the city, the remains of Rizal were examined. They were brought to Narcisa house, washed and cleaned, and were placed in an ivory urn designed by Romualdo Teodoro de Jesus. The urn stayed there until 1912. So, inilibing si Rizal na walang kabaong, and his clothes and shoes could still be identified by the family. However, whatever was hidden in Rizal's shoes, as he mentioned to his sister the final hours before his execution, mumbled to the touch. Sinabi din ni Rizal na after niyang ma-execute, ay tignan ni Trinidad ang kanyang sapatos to look inside his shoes after his execution. Rizal vertebrae show a bullet bored through, leaving a scar. Narcisa later kept that bullet-scarred bone in a glass and silver cup in her house. The rest of Rizal bones were taken home by Narcisa, where they were washed with reverend family friends Higinio, Francisco, and Romualdo Teodoro de Jesus. De Jesus later crafted an ivory urn to serve as a receptacle for Rizal remains, which by turn of the century became the center of the frequent public display of respect as the Filipinos began to take notice of Rizal heroism. 16 years after Rizal bones were retrieved by his sister on December 29, 1912, the ivory urn with Rizal remain was carried in a procession to the Ayuntamiento in Intramuros as a symbol of the mighty Spanish rule. Mounted on a splendid catafalque adorned with floral blooms, the urn became the object of patriotic and civic groups vigil the whole day. Scores of Filipinos joined the procession and thousands more watched the event as Rizal remains were placed in the midst of a foundation over which the Rizal's monument was to rise almost 90 years later in the very ground he had fallen a century ago. Rizal's parents, Teodora Alonso and Francisco Mercado, according to historians, did not live long enough to see the monument offered by a grateful nation to their martyred son, who led the rise against the tyranny of Spain more than 100 years ago. Hindi man lang nakita ng mga magulang ni Rizal ang kanyang monument, hindi na sila umabot. Hindi na nila ito naabutan.
Good morning everyone, especially to you ma'am. My name is Brian Taruzan and I'm the last reporting from the topic 12, and my assigned report is about on Dr. Jose Rizal alleged retraction. The alleged retraction of Dr. Jose Rizal on his Masonic application before he was executed continued to excite and intrigue the imagination of historians, biographers, scholars, academicians, and students. In the October 12, 1960 issue of the Collegian, the official publication of the University of the Philippines, an article on the alleged retraction presented some disturbing confusion with regard to the issue. So number 1, alleged retraction document abuse found. Dr. Jose Rizal retracted piece of paper purporting that such a retraction occurred, says so. Regardless of the dubious circumstance under which such a document, if it can be considered as such, came into light, among other things, this alleged retraction document has been called by responsible people or tinatawag na PUs found. Maraming mananalaysay ang nagtatalo noon kung binawi daw ni Jose Rizal ang kanyang sinabi tungkol sa simbahang Katoliko o hindi. Mula sa pahayag ni Jose Rizal, I retract with all my heart whatever in my words, writings, publications, and conduct have been contrary to my character as a son of the Catholic Church. In his Commonwealth Biographical Contest winning book, or The Pride of the Malay Race, translated from the Spanish, original by ex-Justice Roman Uzaita and Dr. Rafaela Palma. One time the president of the university presented the soundest arguments which any sound-thinking individual would readily conclude as most logical indeed. Why Dr. Jose Rizal would never retract and could not have retracted his Masonic application. So, Dr. Palma book should surpass all other biographies of the national hero of the reason that if it takes a Roman Catholic to understand another of the same sect, then it may be equally stated that it takes a Mason to fully understand a Mason, as both Dr. Jose Rizal and Dr. Palma belonged to the same society. More or less, their minds were oriented to the same manner of thinking. Number 2, Freemasonry, not anti-Catholic. It is indeed very unfortunately that in this country and in so many other countries where Roman Catholic fanatics abound, so much publicity has been circulated that Freemasonry is anti-Catholic and therefore Masons are enemies of the Catholic Church. Noong 1738, inundima ni Pope Clemente ang Freemasonry bilang isang naturalistikong relihiyon. Iba't ibang mga kautusan mula sa Vatican mula noon ay nagsasaad na ang Freemasonry ay hindi tugma sa Katolisismo. At ayon sa opisyal na posisyon ng simbahan, ang mga Katoliko ay pinagbabawalan na sumali sa Freemasonry sa sagit ng excommunication. Gayunpaman, lumitaw ang pamunuan ng simbahan ay hindi lamang daw naiintindihan ng Freemasonry sa isang bagay. Ang Freemasonry ay hindi isang relihiyon. Nangangailangan lamang ito ng mga inaasahang membro na ay magpapahayag ng paniniwala sa Diyos. Ang Freemasonry ay walang posisyon kung saan ang Diyos ay paniniwalaan mo. Kaya maraming lords na Freemason ang may mga membro na Hudyo, Muslim at Hindu. Dr. Jose Rizal never showed any hatred at any moment during his lifetime, and this includes the period when he became a Mason. But then it is inconceivable to a lot of fanatically minded Catholic that Dr. Jose Rizal, the Philippine national hero, did as a Mason. The anti-Catholic, not anti-Catholic religious, ironically, it was group of Spanish officers loyal to the Spanish crown who first introduced Masonry into this country. But it was not this group of Mason which earned the ire of the Catholic Church in the Philippines, but our prominent Filipino patriots who were practically all members of the fraternity, like Bis Rizal, Del Pilar, Graciano Lopez Zaina, Regidor, and Aguinaldo, and who were responsible for the toppling down of the tyrannical and despotic Spanish colonial regime, din a combination of the church and state. Number 3, can probably there never will be. That Father Burgos was really guilty if the trumped up searches him by chilos and anti-nationalistic persons. The case of the Father Burgos that were so common during that infamous era brought up against him, although in some respects similar to that of Cardinal Midzente, was worse because the Roman Catholic Church at the time, being very powerful Spanish, controlled nevertheless, could have easily saved him, but no, it did not, because he was a native priest who was so nationalistic to the point of the working for the secularization of the Philippine parishes. Number 4, the case of the NBI handwriting expert. The alleged retraction paper examined was not the original, but only a photostatic copy of the same. For unknown reason, the original is inaccessible to the general public for closer security. There is still nothing definite regarding the authenticity of the alleged retraction document that has been arrived at yet. So that's all my report